Hello again, everyone. Those of you that are going to the Agora stage, if you're staying here and you notice an empty seat beside you, if you could squeeze away from the aisles, just so that the folks who are trying to find seats aren't shuffling in and out, but can find that. So if you do that, that'd be great. It's great that everyone is here. Speaking of everyone is here, what I find astounding about this conference is the people they bring up for the panel conversations. These aren't just folks they found anywhere. These are high-powered and very influential people, as you will see with our next panel. So we're going to continue the conversation. Thank you very much, Minister. This panel, we're going to keep the conversation going. We are welcoming the Vice President of Generative AI Software for Enterprise at NVIDIA. Carrie Brisky is going to be joining us. The co-founder and CEO of Cohere, Aidan Gomez, is going to be joining us on stage. Along with, we'll welcome back the Minister of Artificial Intelligence and Digital Innovation in Canada, the Honourable Evan Solomon. And to lead this whole conversation, we're very excited to have keynote speaker, best-selling author, host of Amber Mac Show, a podcast on Sirius XM, Amber Mac. Let's welcome these esteemed folks to the stage. Come on up.
Thank you. I think you're in the far seat.
I think I'm the far side. Thank you again. That's good.
Good morning, everyone. Let's try that again. Good morning, everyone. Thank you, thank you. Minister Solomon, I'm sure you want a break from speaking, but I am going to ask the first question to you. So really great to understand Canada's plans for the future of AI. One question I wanted to ask you, I think it's fair to say that everybody in this room is all in, but we also know when it comes to Canadians that more than half of Canadians in this country are worried about the future of AI. Like you mentioned, they're worried about their jobs, they're worried about their kids using AI, they don't have trust in AI. What do we do to potentially solve that very critical issue?
Well, good to be back. That was the shortest break ever. First of all, great to see Amber and Carrie and Aidan and I speak a lot, and trust is so key. Look, we have the AI Canadian Safety Institute. Later today, you can hear from Joshua Bengio and Law Zero, so there's lots of initiatives. But the first and foremost thing, there's a legal side. I mean, it's a priority for us to update our privacy and data laws because people have to feel secure. And those are 25 years old, and they deal with data flow, and they deal with things like consumers and deep fakes. So we have a role to play on the legislative side, not just as a signal to people, but as a signal to businesses. That's the first thing. And that's not the only, there's other aspects. The Justice Minister, I should just say, my colleague Sean Fraser, has spoken just the other day about using the criminal code as well for certain kind of violations that relate to kids. So look, people recognize there are new vectors of threats, and they need our legislation to keep up. So that's one side. The second side is understanding. Amber and I have known each other for a long time, and when you see waves of technology, they always come with anxiety. And this is not from Amber's age, but more my age, during the Gutenberg printing press. But the first printing press, the first modern printing press was the Aldine printing press in Venice. And after Gutenberg invents it, people are starting to make books, and they didn't have copyright laws, and there's a lot of anxiety that the cathedrals of memory would collapse. And they did, by the way. And the Aldine printing press had their logo, their colophon was the anchor and the dolphin. And their Latin motto, for those of you who still speak Latin, was Festima Lente, which means make haste slowly. Make haste slowly. That's what we have to do. We got to move quickly to keep up, but we got to make haste slowly. That means talking about AI and understanding it as a service. And Aidan and I talk about this a lot. It is a tool. And Carrie talks, when people talk about data centers, NVIDIA talks about data factories, AI factories that produce something called a token. That may not be clear what that is for everybody across the country. But again, when we built railroads and roads, the towns sprung up around them. And so we've got to talk about this first as a service. How will this make people's lives better on health, on agriculture, on the things that they see, touch, and feel? Then we have to celebrate the entrepreneurs who have the tools to create new jobs that have not been imagined. And then we have to make sure people do it secure. And that's part of our job. And we can't just talk to people at conferences like this. We've got to talk to everybody to let them know, like in any technical revolution, anxiety comes and comfort comes over use case and a feeling of trust.
Yeah, absolutely. There's definitely a lot of anxiety. Carrie, one of the things the minister said in his speech was that sovereignty does not mean solitude, and I think that was a really good point. I wanted to talk a little bit about some of the work that NVIDIA does. I was listening to a podcast interview that you did earlier this year, where you said that nations were some of the first movers when it comes to AI and understanding the value of AI infrastructure. Can you talk a little bit further about that?
Yeah, I think that all nations should develop their own AI instead of just solely outsourcing it to an external provider. And the reason is simple. It's because AI needs to be aligned to your local values. It needs to understand your cultural context, your norms and your policies. It needs to speak and write in your nuanced natural language patterns. And so it's not something that can be your digital intelligence is not something that can be outsourced. And about 4 years ago, I actually was moderating a panel with AI Sweden, and they had built the first Scandinavian LLM. And nobody cares more about the Swedish culture and the Swedish language than Sweden. And since then, we've worked with the Sarvan model in India had 10 Indic languages, and then Swallow model in Japan, and on and on and on. Speaklish in Poland, and Domain in Italy, and my good friend Arthur Mensch is going to come out here and talk about Mistral in France. And I think the point is these model builders recognize it starts with the local model, but that's not the end of it. Right? What needs to happen, and the thing that we're trying to talk about, is that the local model will attract developers. And so when developers start to build, they need infrastructure to build and to build these applications. And then when they're building these applications, then people interact with them, and then that creates more data, and they give explicit feedback. And so then you're able to, again, create trust through transparency and use, and that little by little. And then you are able to take that data and then improve the model. And so it gets better over time. And so I think that's what's really important.
I'm going to come back to you on this, but Aidan, I wanted to go to you next in terms of Canada and Canada's role. You have been a huge champion for this country, even wearing Canadian plaid today, so thank you for that. You also recently posted on X, and yes, I'm still on Twitter, that Canada is the best country in the world. The experience of services it provides its citizens should be the best in the world, too. Can you talk about the partnership with the Canadian government to enhance public services with secure, sovereign AI tech?
Yeah, I think what we're doing with the government, our intention is to do what we're doing with the private sector, which is just make the quality of products, in this case, the services that the government offers to the citizens, much higher, while also making that delivery dramatically more efficient. So our priorities are, when you're a Canadian and you need something from your government, it should be easier, faster, and better to get that done. It shouldn't be complicated. So we want to drive that, and then we also want that to be efficient, effective. We want each person inside an organization to be dramatically more productive, and at the same time, doing what the minister and Carrie have said, which is preserving sovereignty. So ensuring that our data isn't going into the wrong hands so that it's vulnerable to being used against us, and ensuring that Canadian data stays in Canadian data centers and with Canadian companies. So that's the objective, and I think we're making good strides towards that.
Aidan, the minister talked a little bit about the timing. It is a very exciting time right now. Can you comment on that a little bit about why now is the right time to do this in Canada?
I think there's an opportunity where, like the minister was saying in the opening remarks, Canada led on the development of this technology. We were the first ones to invest in the research when no one else believed in it. there was Jeff, there was Joshua, and our government, our public institutions, research institutions took a bet on deep learning that almost no one else was willing to make. And that led to where we are today. We're in this sort of magical moment where computers have woken up and we can speak to silicon. We can speak to some glass and metal. And it's a surreal moment, and Canada delivered that to the world. But we should also be the ones to actually commercialize it. We shouldn't just do the research part and then hand it away to the rest of the world to make money on it and actually put it into production inside the world's economies. We should be the ones to do that. And in order for us to succeed in delivering that to the world, we have to be our own first customer. And so I've seen in this moment in Canada, there's a lot of geopolitical changes that are happening. Canadians are stepping up. The ambition, the willingness to invest and take risk, which 2 years ago I didn't see, right? Like 99-point-something% of our revenue was outside of Canada. Now, this year, it really feels like both public and private sector have woken up.
Yeah, I think I interviewed you a couple of years ago, and we were still in kind of those early days and a lot of apprehension. Minister Solomon, I wanted to talk about innovation, but more specifically regulation. This is a massive topic right now in the minds of so many people. When we think about trust and safety, it is true that these are really values that Canada has today. We are a trusted country. When you think about the future of regulation, as so many countries in the world move away from regulating AI, is there an opportunity for Canada to play a really important role here, all while we also innovate as well?
Absolutely. First of all, just to echo what Aidan said, and Carrie, digital sovereignty is a core policy issue. And again, as you said, Amber, it's not solitude, but there is a moment, and you're seeing at Cohere great new partnerships with Canadian companies, not just with the government, Canadian investors, which is great. That's happening. There's a whole bunch of companies watching us they say, okay, how do I unlock some of that capital so I can stay here? Where's my seed investor? What about Series A? Where's my VCs? Again, we are very aware of that element of the backbone, that kind of vertebrae, and we are very, very focused in the days to come and the Prime Minister's been clear about this in our platform, unlocking access to make sure that entrepreneurs have better access to capital at that level, and then right up the chain. On the regulatory side, first of all, we need some clear lines because uncertainty freezes capital investment. And there's a lot of uncertainty around the world. What can we do here? Maybe 10 seconds on the landscape. The United States and China, they have a position that any form of regulation is a constraint on security and innovation. And then the EU a couple years ago went ahead and they tried to regulate, and they have found, and they're quite open about it, that it's done some good things, but it's constrained a lot of innovation. And Canada, I really feel that I get all the kind of crappy, boring technical stuff here, and these guys do the cool stuff. But I'm just going to say, in our last parliament, there was a piece of legislation on privacy and data called C27, wake up, C27, but it was about privacy data, and there was a third element of it that was going to regulate AI, and it was very, very controversial. And so what I have said publicly in our legislative priority is I am very keen on part 1 and 2 because we desperately need an update to protect our privacy and our data, especially how data flows across borders. Especially then we need to add, we have to be present. We got to meet people where they're at. And where they're at is like, I don't want to see deep fakes. I want to make sure if someone does a deep fake, or if Amber, there's a deep fake of you on there saying something, what can you do about it? So that kind of thing is real, and we got to look at that. So we're going to try to address that. We got to address things, sensitive information around children. And you hear stories about this all the time. So we got to meet people, but that's the first part of the legislative journey. Now, can we, William Tell this and pick off the apple on the head on the perfect regulation? No, because we don't know, there's no way right now to perfect way to regulate AI that allows for perfect innovation. So we have to be really careful. So we've got to decide to be laser focused on those key things, keeping Canadian sensitive data safe with sovereign infrastructure that Aidan just talked about and Carrie's talked about, and I've talked about, core to our mission, privacy, data, kids, consumers. That's a huge part of it. That allows a big open window for innovation still, but for Canadians to feel safe. This is a high-tech world. Legislation can't move, has to move the same way that technology evolves, which is iteratively, right? Like, we've got to be nimble in how we focus, because, you know, it is pointless to try to throw a saddle on a horse that's bucking and running. Like, we got to make sure we can do it and control what people want us to control. And by the way, we can, but we got to make sure we don't miss this innovation train. And I think we're going to strike that balance. And the key is to be transparent about it, and not to promise a regulatory fantasy that Canada, because Canada can do things alone and be digitally sovereign, but we're a trading nation. We have more free trade relationships than any other country in the world. Our competitive asset is that people want to do business here, and we want to do business with the world. We can't constrain our #1 competitive asset: rule of law, educated population, great talent churning out, trusted place, natural resources. Those are our competitive advantages, and we have to make sure in protecting those, our regulation doesn't suffocate those.
Since you're throwing out a lot of old sayings, I will also add, you know, we can't let perfect be the enemy of good. You know, perhaps we need good regulation. It's not going to be perfect yet. Aidan,
it could be perfectly good, though. Right?
That is fair.
That's what we hope.
Yeah, perfectly good. I would be happy with that. Aidan, in line with this conversation on trust and safety, you speak a lot about the importance of security as well. You wrote recently, "We don't treat security as a feature, it's the foundation." Can you expand on that?
Yeah, so Cohere's deployment model is quite different from some of the other players in our space. We do fully private deployments, so that means we can go into any data center on any cloud or off of cloud. And we can go all the way to air-gapped, where you unplug that data center from the internet and it's completely secure. There's no other organization in the AI space who's delivering this technology, these agents, that securely. And so that's something that we're super proud of, we view as a huge differentiator. And it's the ultimate guarantee in protection of your data. There's so much fear that whether you're in the private sector and it's your trade secrets, your IP, your employees are uploading this into ChatGPT or consumer services, and then it leaks to some external company that might train on that data, and then it becomes public information. Whereas with Cohere, there's no sending data externally. You aren't sending your data to Cohere. Cohere is sending our models and our tech to you, and you run it in your data center. So that guarantee of security is something that people have been previously lax about, and now are taking seriously. There's this renewed urgency towards privacy, towards sovereignty, where we understand how valuable data is, how sensitive it is, and that we actually need to protect it.
Carrie, when you look at what Cohere is doing with the Canadian government, it's a great example of alignment and collaboration. I know NVIDIA has been doing this for a long time in terms of collaborating. Most recently, there was an announcement that NVIDIA is helping to build the UK's AI industrial revolution. What can you tell us about the importance of this investment?
Yeah, first of all, I'd like to take a second and congratulate Canada and Cohere on supporting sovereign AI and sovereign models on local infrastructure. I mean, I think that's fantastic. Yeah, the UK announcement, so we had announced that a number of NVIDIA AI infrastructure partners are going to deploy 120,000 GPUs. That's 11 billion UK pounds of AI infrastructure. And additionally, there was Jensen mentioned a $2 billion investment fund with local capital investment firms. And the point is, I don't think it's really about the announcement. The point is really the takeaway is when you have world-class universities and researchers, which you have here, and startups, which you have here in Canada, and capital investment firms. When you bring that all together, you can and have them rally around a national infrastructure. I mean, it just lays the foundation for innovation. And so it really does take, it's not just about the infrastructure, it takes the entire, all the developers, it takes the entire ecosystem. You have to come together to build it together.
We just have a few minutes left, so a couple more questions for our panel today. Minister Solomon, I wanted to ask about Canadian business leaders, because this is a question I think a lot of them have. I do a lot of speaking on this topic, and I always get asked the question, what can I do as a business leader today to adapt to this AI journey and integrate AI into my business? What would your advice be for people who want to be proactive right now?
I would say three things, Amber. First, buy Canadian. To a certain extent, you got to use our Canadian partners. We have great companies here. Second, there's going to be great innovators like NVIDIA that are international partners, and those partnerships matter, and they'll work with you within your own sense of safety and security. So that's the first thing. There's great innovation here. Even our international partners and the greatest innovators around the world are working together because they appreciate the need to build the ecosystem here. That's the first thing. The second thing is have a plan. Adopting technology for the sake of the technology is not the plan. Adopting technology for the sake of the service delivery is the plan. Clear metrics and clear customer change. So you've got to have clear metrics. And the partners, the good partners in this technology, and you're seeing them here, and you're probably seeing them all through this entire All-In conference, and there's many, will help partner on that. Look, investing, a lot of CEOs, in Canada, we have a low adoption rate. Now it's changing, it's changing almost by the day. The curve is bending up. But we are about 8 to 10% in adoption rate behind the rest of the OECD in terms of AI usage. So that's a productivity issue. That's a competitive issue, okay? And investing in R&D and investing in solutions to drive not just efficiency but productivity is really important. But the best partners will help design a bespoke system that delivers the service. So I would just say, first, look around here, right? There's lots of great Canadian companies. 2, invite your international partners to join that plan. And 3, have a good strategic plan to adopt. And finally, this is something in government that we got to avoid, pilot-itis, right? We don't want pilots that die. Again, in the business of technology, when you iterate, you adapt and you grow. You adapt and you grow. You don't have to be, and Amber, you said it, and I think Jensen Wong, I was with Jensen at a dinner recently, and he said, he was talking to some people, he said, the problem with all of you people, and everyone kind of held their breath, he said, is that you're too perfect. You wait till everything's perfect. In our business, you've got to launch and see and test and then keep growing. And so don't be afraid to get a little mucky on this.
Absolutely.
Aidan, maybe I can ask you to follow up to that. So buy Canadian, have a plan, partner. What else would you say to Canadian business leaders?
Yeah, no, I just want to echo what Minister Solomon said, which is that ambition and risk tolerance, which is something that Canadian organizations have lacked historically. Actually leaning in, taking a bet, not being satisfied with just doing endless little POCs, science experiments, but also not being satisfied with, if your AI strategy is, I bought Microsoft Copilot or my employees use ChatGPT, you don't have an AI strategy. That is not a strategy. That is like the absolute bottom of the stack in terms of value creation. And so you need a strategy, you need actual concrete objectives and a path towards true ROI.
All right, well, we just have 2 minutes left. I want to just get some closing remarks from each of our panelists today. Carrie, starting with you, just some advice for the audience.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I would double down on just get started today. And what AI has been is it closes the technology divide. It's been closing that gap. And if you haven't already, or if your family hasn't already, or your business hasn't already, there's so many amazing applications because you can go out, and Aiden said it earlier, you can go out and you can just talk to your computer. I mean, the amount of people that can talk to your computer is vastly greater than the amount of people who know how to program in C++ or Python. And I'll say that my 12-year-old daughter went out and there's apps, and she created an application to track her gymnastics scores and have AI evaluate her and speak, and just by talking to it. And the thing was, you can see the code, so trust through transparency. You could see all that code being written for her. And I felt like an old grandma. I was like, Daddy and I used to have to write all of that code by hand. And she was not impressed.
Yes, just like the days of the printing press.
But go do it. Just go out. There's so many great apps to just get started today.
Aiden, you've already given us lots of great advice. Some final words from you.
Yeah, no, I think this is Canada's moment to take this technology from the research phase, which I was a part of. I grew up in Ontario. I went to U of T. It's where I met my co-founders. We now have the opportunity to take this research that we invested in, we took the risk, we bet on, and developed for the world, and put it into production. And to do that, we're going to have to be ambitious, we're going to have to take risks, and we're going to have to lead. And so I think that's for everyone in this room, every single citizen inside of Canada to think about. What does that mean, and what can I be doing to push that forward inside of my organization or my day-to-day life? There's a huge opportunity in front of us. We just need to choose to seize it.
Minister, we're almost out of time, but just a few seconds from you for closing remarks.
First of all, thank you, and continue the work. Canada's moment for sure, if we're ambitious and we take the right bets. Bet on each other, I would say. But the foundational message to me is people. Like, don't pit the technology against people. This is a tool for entrepreneurs and a tool for better service. And if we show people that, you will find this room doubling, and I know it will because the Scale AI people are awesome. It will grow and grow and grow. We want people to crowd into this space because this is a service tool to make our lives better. And that's the most important thing in this. Really, we're in a crisis. This is a helpful tool to grow our country and our economy for everyone.
Thank you, everyone, and thank you, Montreal.
Thank you.